case we have never met, I'm Michael Price, and I want to help you succeed in growing your business.
Hello, I'm Nancy, your co-host.
And I'm Michael Price, your host.
Welcome back to The Deep Dive. Today we are wading into waters that I think a lot of people find, well, frankly, they find it pretty intimidating.
Oh, absolutely, because we're dealing with bureaucracy.
Right, and not just any bureaucracy. We are talking about the Department of Veterans Affairs.
The VA, the labyrinth.
The labyrinth is exactly right. So today, specifically, we are looking at the massive and, honestly, often very confusing system of disability claims. Now, if you are a veteran or, if you're the learner and you love a veteran, you know that this isn't just about filling out paperwork.
No, not at all.
It is about navigating a maze where the difference between a yes and a no, between getting the benefits you actually earned or just getting a cold denial letter, it often comes down to very specific phrasing.
It really is a game of language. That's the best way to think about it.
Yeah.
It's not just about your health, it's about how your health is translated into a highly structured legal framework. And unfortunately, most people, they go into this thinking it's a medical process, when in reality it's a legal one.
Exactly. And that is our mission for today's deep dive. We are going to decode that language. We've got a stack of sources here that are just really eye-opening.
Incredible stuff in there.
Yeah. We have internal notes on something called the perils of improperly completed DBQs, which we will explain what a DBQ is in just a moment. We also have analysis of the VA's new AI fraud detection tools. Yes, there are literally robots reading your file now.
Which is a huge development. I mean, it changes the landscape completely.
Huge. And we have transcripts from veteran advocacy channels that break down some really specific strategies. Things like the 100-mile rule, the power of telehealth, all of that. But here is the hook, and this is what really grabbed me when I was reviewing the materials this morning. You might have a private doctor who has treated you for 20 years. They know your history. They genuinely want to help you. They fill out a form to support your claim.
And they might accidentally destroy your chances of getting approved.
Exactly. They completely tank the claim.
It happens all the time. It is probably the single most tragic unforced error in this entire process. We call it the friendly doctor trap.
So that's what we're unpacking today. We are going to reveal the top 3 specific documentation errors that deny claims. We're going to explain this AI robot called BI that is scanning millions of documents as we speak. And we're going to talk about the bridge, how things like a comprehensive Nexus letter and telehealth visits can actually save a claim and bridge the gap.
Because it's really about moving from being a passive applicant to a master of documentation architecture. You have to build a case the system literally cannot reject.
Documentation architecture. I really like that framing.
Yeah.
So let's set the context before we get into the top 3 specific errors. When we look at this whole landscape of denial, why is this so difficult? Why is there such a massive disconnect?
Well, it comes down to a fundamental tension between 2 totally different worlds. You have the world of clinical medicine, and then you have the world of forensic medicine.
Okay, let's break that down for the learner. Clinical versus forensic. Because to the average person, I think medicine is just medicine. A doctor is a doctor.
That's the logical assumption to make. But in the VA ecosystem, that assumption is fatal to your claim. Clinical medicine is what you are used to. You go to your doctor, you say, "Hey doc, my back hurts," or "I have these terrible migraines."
Right.
The doctor's goal, their entire professional mission in that room, is to heal you, to make you feel better. They treat symptoms. They write notes that are basically shorthand for other doctors to understand how to treat you.
Like a patient complains of pain, prescribed ibuprofen, recommended physical therapy, that kind of thing.
Exactly, that is clinical. It focuses on therapy and alleviation. Now, the VA system is forensic. It is not about healing you. The adjudicator looking at your file at a desk somewhere isn't trying to prescribe you medication.
They can't.
Right, they are trying to rate you. They are trying to measure the severity of your disability against a very rigid, specific legal set of criteria called the rating schedule.
So one is trying to fix the problem, and the other is just trying to measure the problem for a financial payout.
Precisely, it's an audit. And the disconnect happens when veterans try to use clinical evidence for a forensic purpose.
Which happens all the time.
All the time. Many claims are denied, not because the veteran isn't disabled. Let's be very clear about that. The veteran is often legitimately suffering, but the evidence they submit doesn't fit the specific legal shape the VA requires.
It's like trying to put a square peg in a round hole, but the square peg is your lifetime of medical records.
The better analogy might be currency. Imagine you're trying to buy a house in Europe, but you show up with a suitcase full of yen. It's real money, it has actual value, but it's not the currency this specific bank accepts. The VA bank only accepts forensic data.
Specific measurements, legal buzzwords.
Specific formatting, yes.
And when that currency doesn't match, when the paperwork is unclear or just doesn't match the language of the rating schedule, what happens?
Then the adjudicator, the person deciding your fate, has to do what the sources explicitly call flipping through the file.
I saw that phrase in the internal notes, flipping through the file. It sounds so casual, like someone just browsing a magazine in a waiting room, but in this context, it's actually kind of terrifying, isn't it?
It's incredibly dangerous for your claim. It implies a total lack of direction. It means the adjudicator is guessing. They are looking at a vague note from your clinical doctor. Maybe it just says, patient has severe headaches, and they are trying to guess. Is that a 10% rating? Is it 30%? If they have to guess, they're usually going to guess low, or they're going to delay the claim entirely and ask for more exams.
Which brings us perfectly to part 1 of our deep dive, the top 3 documentation errors, or like we said, the private doctor trap, because this is exactly where good intentions pave the road to a denial letter.
Let's get into the mechanics of this because the specific details really matter here.
So error number 1 is inadequate medical detail and the rating schedule mismatch. We touched on this, but let's go deeper. You have a private doctor. They are brilliant. They went to Harvard Med. Why is their note, as the source says, not worth the paper it's written on?
Because they don't know the Code of Federal Regulations, specifically Title 38, Part 4. They don't know the rating schedule.
Right.
Look, most private doctors have zero idea what the VA requires. They don't know that for a back injury, the VA specifically cares about range of motion measured in exact degrees.
Can we zoom in on that? The back injury example from the text.
Sure. Let's say you have a herniated disc. It hurts like hell. Your private doctor writes, patient has severe pain and limited mobility. Clinically, that's totally accurate. Forensically, it's garbage.
Garbage.
The VA rating for the spine is based almost entirely on range of motion measurements. To get a 20% rating, your forward flexion, which is how far you can bend over, must be between 30 and 60 degrees.
Wow.
And to get 40%, it has to be 30 degrees or less.
It's really that mathematical.
It is pure arithmetic. It's not about how much you grimace in the office. It's about the exact angle of the spine.
So if the doctor just writes down limited mobility, the rater can't assign a percentage because they literally don't have the number.
Exactly, and the doctor needs to use a specific tool called the goniometer to get that number.
A goniometer?
It's basically a medical protractor. If your private doctor just eyeballs it and says, yeah, he can't bend very far, but they don't record the goniometric measurement, the VA cannot legally use that to assign a specific rating.
And what about something less physical, like migraines? The sources mention specific words there too that act as tripwires.
Migraines are a classic trap. The VA is looking for the exact phrase prostrating attacks.
Prostrating, that's a very weird, specific word. I feel like I only see that in the Bible or old novels.
It is a legal term in the VA context. It means the migraine is so bad you have to lay down in a dark room and you literally cannot function. You are essentially incapacitated. Now, if your brilliant Harvard doctor writes, patient has severe debilitating headaches that affect their work.
That sounds terrible to me. It sounds like I should get disability. Debilitating actually sounds worse than prostrating to a layperson.
But debilitating isn't in the rating schedule, prostrating is. If they don't check the specific box or use the exact language that aligns with the rating criteria, if they don't articulate the frequency and the prostrating nature exactly as the law defines it, the VA looks at that document and says, this is clinically interesting but legally ambiguous.
Wow. So the burden is actually entirely on the veteran. The source says the veteran has to bring the doctor up to speed. That feels like a massive ask.
It is a huge ask.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine walking into your doctor's office, you're in real pain. You have to say, hey doc, before you examine me, I need you to read this legal brief on 38 CFR Part 4 so you know how to write your notes.
They're going to look at you like you're crazy or arrogant.
Or they're just going to say, I don't have time for this, I have 15 other patients waiting, and they'll fill out the Disability Benefits Questionnaire, the DBQ, just using their standard everyday medical knowledge.
And that leads us to error number 2, which is arguably even scarier.
Let's move on.
Yes. Right, error number 2, creating new evidence hurdles. This is the part that really surprised me when reading the materials. I assumed that submitting a bad form was just neutral, like, oh well, it didn't help, but it didn't hurt. But the sources say it can actually make your case worse.
Yes, this is the steeper hill concept. You are essentially digging a hole that you then have to climb out of.
Explain that to the learner. How does my own doctor's note end up hurting me?
Okay, so let's say you submit a DBQ from your private doctor that is vague. It underreports your severity because the doctor didn't ask the right forensic questions. They didn't measure your range of motion with a goniometer.
They just eyeballed it.
Right, they eyeballed it and checked normal or mild limitation because, hey, compared to a car crash victim they saw earlier, you look okay.
Okay, so now there is a formal document in the VA system that says mild.
Right, that document is now official medical evidence in your file. It is part of your permanent record. So now you have evidence against yourself. You have a doctor, your own doctor, saying your condition isn't that bad.
But what?
If you later try to say, no, really, I can't bend over to tie my shoes, the VA points to your own doctor's note and says, but right here it says you're fine.
You have created conflicting evidence?
Precisely. You've handed the opposition ammunition, and when there is conflicting evidence, the VA is legally mandated to resolve it. They will almost certainly send you to one of their own compensation and pension exams, a C&P exam.
Ooh, which most veterans try to avoid if they already have their own private evidence.
Right, but because your own evidence was weak or contradictory, you are walking into that C&P exam with a massive disadvantage. You have to actively overcome the bad evidence you already submitted. You have to somehow prove that your own doctor was wrong. That is very difficult legal position to be in.
That is a nightmare scenario. You try to be proactive, you try to help your case, and you shoot yourself in the foot.
It happens every single day. Veterans think volume is the key. They think I'll just throw everything at them. But if you throw garbage at them, it just smells like garbage.
Let's talk about error number 3, unclear rating criteria and the guessing game. We mentioned migraines earlier, but can we walk through that example in terms of the actual buckets? Because the sources were very specific about how these ratings are tiered.
This is a perfect example of why specificity matters so much. For migraines, the VA has specific rating buckets, 0%, 10%, 30%, and 50%. Those are the only levels. There is no 25%, there is no 40%.
You have to fit perfectly into one of those slots.
You have to fit the slot.
Okay, so what defines those slots?
Usually isn't enough if there is any gap in time. You can be 100% disabled, bedridden even, but if you can't officially prove the link to your service, the VA pays you $0.
How does the letter actually do that? What is the medical rationale? It sounds like we're looking for magic words again.
It is an argument, a very specific medical argument. The doctor reviews your history and writes something exactly like, it is at least as likely as not that the veteran's current degenerative disc disease is related to the parachute jump in 2004.
Stop right there. At least as likely as not, that is a very specific, almost clunky phrase.
It is the only phrase that matters. In the VA legal system, the standard of proof is 50% or greater. At least as likely as not means 50-50 or better. And the rule is, the benefit of the doubt legally goes to the veteran, so a tie goes to the runner.
So if the doctor writes, it is possibly related.
Possibly a speculative, that's maybe 20 or 30% certainty. That's an automatic denial. Might be related as a denial. It must say, well, thus, at least as likely as not, or more likely than not.
That is wild that using a standard synonym gets your claim denied.
It's the law, and the doctor then has to cite medical literature to back up that claim. They have to explain the latency of symptoms. They have to explain medically why a back injury might not show up on an X-ray in 1999, but manifests as severe arthritis in 2015.
They provide the why.
Exactly, and this works for two distinct types of claims. There is direct service connection, meaning this condition started in the Army, and then there is secondary condition, which is a huge strategy that people totally miss.
Like my service-connected knee injury caused my current back issues.
That is a classic one. Let's say you were already service-connected for a left knee injury. You limp. You've limped every day for 10 years. That naturally alters your gait. It throws your hips off. Now your lower back, your lumbar spine is taking uneven pressure every time you take a step.
So the back wasn't actually hurt in service?
No, but the knee was.
And
the knee mechanically hurt the back. The Nexus letter draws that specific line and says, the veteran walks with an altered gait due to the service-connected left knee, which has placed abnormal stress on the lumbar spine, causing the current back condition. That is a nexus. You are building a solid bridge from the knee, which is already approved, to the back, which is new.
It makes so much sense. It's a chain reaction.
It is, but you absolutely cannot just assume the VA will see that chain reaction on their own. You need a medical doctor to write it down.
And it requires homework. The sources say it must be comprehensive.
Yes, a comprehensive Nexus letter involves a deep review of records. The doctor has to literally write, I have reviewed the veteran's service treatment records. That single phrase is worth its weight in gold. It shows they did their homework. It proves they aren't just taking the veteran's word for it, they actually looked at the source documents.
So it's not just a buddy saying, yeah, here it is back. It is professional medical evidence.
Right? Buddy statements are great, and we'll talk about those next, but a Nexus letter is medical evidence. It carries the weight of a medical degree.
Well, let's talk about those buddy statements, because I think people get really confused here. If medical evidence is king, why do we even need our friends or spouses to write letters?
That brings us to part 5, completing the puzzle. Buddy statements, or what the VA calls lay evidence, fill the observation gap.
The observation gap.
Right? Doctors see you for 15 minutes in an exam room, your wife sees you for 24 hours a day, your squad leader saw you every day for 4 years in the field. They are first-hand witnesses to your life. But, and this is a huge but, the source warns that relying solely on buddy statements is a very common mistake.
Still not enough, the source explicitly says.
It's not enough to diagnose. You can have 10 letters from your entire platoon saying, we saw him fall off a transport truck. But if a doctor doesn't diagnose the resulting back injury and link it, the VA will say, we believe you fell, but we don't have medical proof it caused this specific rateable disability today. Lay people cannot diagnose pathologies.
So what is the correct strategic use of a buddy statement?
Context. They attest to continuity. Things like, I have known the veteran for 10 years, I have seen him limping every morning, I have seen him leave family barbecues early because of severe migraines.
Oh, that's powerful. It shows the actual impact on daily life.
It creates a believable timeline, and crucially, it can explain easing the issue. This is fascinating. The source mentions detailing what the veteran did to self-medicate.
Like saying, I didn't go to the doctor. I just took 4 ibuprofen every morning and used a heating pad so I could get to work.
Exactly. That explains the lack of official medical records. If your wife writes, he didn't go to sick call because he was incredibly stubborn, but I saw him icing his knees every single night for 10 years, that fills the silence in the record.
It essentially turns the absence of evidence into evidence of absence of treatment.
Beautifully put, it proves you were actively managing the pain on your own rather than the pain not existing.
Now, before we wrap up today's deep dive, we have to talk about urgency. The sources highlighted a couple of specific conditions, sleep apnea and migraines, where the rules are either shifting or people are just missing out on benefits.
Sleep apnea is the big one right now. The sources are practically flashing warning lights.
Why? What's actually changing?
Currently, if you have sleep apnea and you were formerly prescribed a CPAP machine, that is very often a 50% rating. That is a massive rating. It can easily be the difference between getting nothing and getting comprehensive health care and monthly compensation. It's considered a high-value claim.
But the rating schedules are changing.
The VA has officially proposed changes. The new logic is, if the CPAP machine works, if it adequately treats the condition so you can sleep, then you aren't really functionally disabled anymore, right? So under the new rules, the rating could drop to 0% or maybe 10%.
From 50% to 0%, that is a huge, huge drop.
It is drastic. The source creates a real sense of urgency here. If you have this condition, you need to file right now. If you file before the rule change goes into effect, you are generally grandfathered in under the old, more generous rules. If you wait, you might be stuck with the new 0% rule.
That is critical advice. Do not wait on sleep apnea. And what about migraines?
Migraines are described in the text as highly underutilized. People get headaches and they just live with them. They think, oh, it's just a headache. But if you have prostrating attacks, there's that magic word again. It could be 30% or 50%, but you need specific documentation to prove the frequency. You need a headache log.
A log, like a journal?
A literal diary, date, time, duration, severity. You write, had to leave work at 2 p.m., laid in dark room for 4 hours, missed shift. If you present a detailed log like that covering 6 months, it makes it very, very hard for the VA to deny the frequency criteria. Don't leave that money on the table if you are genuinely suffering.
Incredible. Okay, let's bring this all home. We have covered a lot of ground today. We've gone from the private doctor's office to the AI server room. If we had to sum up the ultimate strategy, the winning formula derived from all these sources, what does it look like?
I'd break it down into 4 key pillars, a cheat sheet for the learner. Number 1, avoid the private doctor pitfall. If you use your own doctor, you must ensure they absolutely know the rating schedule. If they aren't using a goniometer when checking the specific legal boxes on the DBQ, you are gambling with your claim.
right?
Number 2, respect the AI. Don't cut and paste. Keep your signatures consistent. Use clear provider IDs. Simply don't give the machine a reason to flag you.
Number 3,
Use telehealth. It is the modern gold standard for getting significant weight behind your claim without the travel hassle. It validates your symptoms eye to eye and completely solves the 100-mile rule scrutiny.
and the final pillar.
Build the bridge. If there's any gap in your timeline between service and diagnosis, you need a Nexus letter. Do not assume the VA will just connect the dots out of the goodness of their hearts. You have to draw the line for them with the exact phrase, at least as likely as not.
That is a remarkably solid blueprint, and I think it empowers the listener. Instead of feeling like a victim of a massive, uncaring system, you can actually become a navigator of that system.
Exactly. You stop hoping for a yes and you start actively building a case that demands a yes.
I want to end with a thought that struck me while we were talking about Project BI and the algorithm scanning millions of files.
What's that?
We are entering this era where machines are reading our stories. They are scanning our pain for fraud, scanning for specific keywords, and you mentioned earlier that the human element is shrinking.
It is. The days of walking into a local VA office and just telling your story to a sympathetic human ear are largely gone. The system is digitized, it's algorithmic, and it is highly rigid.
So, the veteran's best defense is no longer just being honest, though obviously honesty is absolutely required. The best defense is becoming a master of documentation architecture. You have to build a file that a robot can easily read and a human legally cannot deny.
That's the reality. It's not fair, perhaps, but it is the reality we live in. And understanding the rules of that game is the very first step to winning it.
Well, learner, thank you for diving deep with us today. This is heavy stuff, but hopefully you feel a little more equipped to fight the good fight.
Keep building that bridge.
We'll see you on the next deep dive. Take care.
If you found this video helpful, please consider donating to helpallvets.org. Thank you.